I should say that clones illuminate something about your character. They show something about your character because of the sameness that they have or the difference that they have.
On this week's episode of You Are a Storyteller, Brian and Jesse discuss clone characters, what they are, and how you can use them in your stories.
I have a friend who he got a job working at well, should I say where he was working? He got a job working at a big special effects house, and he got a job as a storyboard and concept guy there. It was his first sort of big job. And when he was there, he met a guy who had been there, I think, 10 years or something. And this guy could draw like a maniac, kind of like the guy. Everybody was like, that guy, he's the guy. He draws very well. I know him now, but at the time he was just an abstract guy. The story was about, my friend was telling me. So I met this guy when I worked there, and he goes, this guy could draw like a maniac, but he was burned out. He was all the joy because he worked at this particular company, doing the stuff he was doing and not being allowed to be as creative as he could be and all of that. It sucked the life out of him. And my friend looked at that guy and he said, oh, I can't be here more than 10 years. And that's a clone character. He was using that guy and his experience to inform his decisions about where he wanted to be.
What's cool is your buddy was like clear-minded enough to go, that's me in 10 years.
Right.
Instead of just like, wonder what Phil's problem is or whatever, right? That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, he had some wisdom to see that.
He did.
So when you use the term clone character, it's one of those things like, after you kind of obviously showed me a bunch of examples of this, now I see it everywhere. And it's been super helpful for me from a writing standpoint, even a directing standpoint, to understand that the characters that are surrounding kind of this main character are not random, and they're not there just for like flavor,
right?
But they serve a purpose. What would be like a story? You talked about like the Three Pigs. Can you walk us through how the Three Pigs is a good example of clone characters?
Sure. And I should say that clones, that's one word for them. That's the word I use. And there are reasons that I use my own terminology. One of them is that if I say something like I use armature to mean theme. Reason I say armature instead of theme. Now I use them interchangeably, but when I'm teaching, I'll say armature first, because people walk in to a space or a class or whatever with different definitions of theme, right? And so if I start saying theme without providing a definition, then we're not speaking the same language.
Right.
So people aren't hearing what I'm saying in the same way.
Or they might go like, theme. Yeah, I got it.
Right.
Yeah.
So armature is new to them usually. They haven't thought of it or heard of it that way. And then I can define what it is. And once I've defined it and they understand it, we can go interchangeably between theme and armature, right?
Right.
So clones, some people have a problem with the word because clones don't have to be exactly like your main character or your protagonist. And so they're like, yeah, but a clone's exactly the same. And so they get hung up on the word clone. Some people would use the phrase mirror characters or reflection characters. But mirror characters and reflection characters, reflections aren't the same either. And neither are mirrors, right? So it doesn't, it's like, maybe there's a word in another language. There's no word in English, right?
That's the perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And the people that argue about those types of things, it's like, just stop it.
Yeah.
Get over it.
I know.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Great.
So, clones. So the way I use clones is that you have your protagonist, and this character or characters around your character illuminate something about your character. They show something about your character because of the sameness that they have or the difference that they have. So the Three Little Pigs are my favorite examples of clone characters. They're probably the most famous because that story's about one pig. It's not about three pigs. It's about one pig. It's about the pig that built the house of bricks.
No, the funny thing is, before you unpack that, I remember being in your class and you say you actually started a little further up the funnel. Okay. You said, who's the Three Little Pigs about?
Okay.
And we were hearing answers like the wolf.
Right.
Or wait, it's only about one of the pigs?
Yeah.
Maybe the first one?
Yeah.
So why do you say it's about the third pig specifically?
Well, Because he's the one who really learns the lesson, right? He's the protagonist. He's the one that learns the lesson. The wolf is just an obstacle, just a problem. So it's about the pig who's successful, the pig who builds the house of bricks. But you have no idea that pig is successful unless you have the failure of the first two pigs, right? So you have the house of straw pig, right? And that could just be a mistake. You could do it with one pig, right, and go mistake, mistake, success. Because that's all it is. Mistake, mistake, success. House of bricks, house of straw, house of bricks.
And it's the 3 thing too, because isn't there like a rule of 3? And
because 3. It works this way in music too, and I'm not a music guy, so music people might have some debate about it. But essentially, there's that YouTube of Paul Simon writing "Still Crazy," and he talks about threes in that. Have you never seen that?
No.
You got to see that.
Crazy.
It is crazy. It's amazing to see because he doesn't know how the song ends. He doesn't know how the song goes. He's writing it right there, so he's like, I don't know. Then I could do this with it, and I could do that with
crazy.
it. But he talks about threes a little bit in there. And so the idea or the theory behind it is that generally, and jokes work this way too, right? There's a triple. A triple is, somebody's making a list on a sitcom or something, and they say this, and the third one will be the twist, right?
Yeah.
Because
eggs, milk, and a puppy.
Right. Whatever it is, right? Because 2 is a pattern. 1's not a pattern, right? So 2 is a pattern, and 3 breaks the pattern. Right? You get it at 2.
Yeah.
3 is too much. You're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then at 3, you're like, okay, you get your point.
Right.
So it's the right number. So you have the first 2 pigs, and they're really just to give you contrast.
Right. They exist, so you go, oh, that pig's successful. You take those pigs out of the story. Tell the story without 3, just 1 pig, and forget about the house of bricks and the house of straw. And you say, once upon a time there was a pig, and he built a house of bricks, and a wolf came and tried to blow it down and couldn't blow it down.
Okay.
Right? There's no story because
right.
there's no progression.
Right. Yeah.
Right? The story happens because there's progression. There's failure, success.
That's right. And then, but once you see the straw, the sticks, and then by then you're like, well, what's going to happen? And then the third one does it. I think in the original story too, the wolf came down the chimney and into a pot and cooked the wolf. And so they actually reversed it.
Yeah.
Where like the pig was eating the wolf.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's darker.
Yeah.
Than the Disney version.
Yeah.
But those clones are there for a purpose. So, what I like about that is the funny thing is I was just reading about the 3 pigs, and the earliest printed version they have of the story is like 1840. But they think it existed much longer than that.
Yeah.
Right. And then of course it's evolved, and then, when Disney redid it, they, kind of caught on here, and they made it a lot more friendlier. So it wasn't like the pigs were getting eaten every time. They were just running to their brothers' houses or whatever. They changed it. But I always thought the 3 little pigs example you used was really helpful, just as like, let's start with a really simple one. Right. Before, because when we start looking at some of the features and things, they get kind of complex. And but if you look at, great, let's look at that. You can see how the other ones are there, right? You mentioned the wolf being there because you needed an obstacle. I think even as we're handling like really high level basic stuff, can you talk about like the goal and the obstacle, right?
Sure.
Just even those 3 basic pieces you need for a story.
Well, okay. So Bill Idelson put it this way, but a lot of people have talked about it this way. Neil Simon talked about it this way too. In order to have a story, you need essentially 3 elements. You need a character. You need a goal, something that character wants, and you need an obstacle to that goal.
Right.
And how that character overcomes that obstacle to reach that goal is your story.
That's it.
That's all. That's all you need. Sketches work that way.
Yeah.
Or at least they used to. Now I've got a funny character, and he talks
Goofs
real loud
around.
or whatever. Whatever the thing is.
He talks real loud.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I cracked the nut on this one.
Yeah.
He talks
really loud.
Oh, okay.
That's why a lot of sketches seem to go on too long. And because there's not an obstacle, right?
Right.
So people have thrown that out the window because that's old fashioned.
Right.
But it has worked for thousands of years. So I guess.
Well, what's funny? Last time I heard you explain that, you didn't even tell like a big fancy story. You talked about like a raccoon at the zoo. Do you remember that story? Yeah. Just to like give you an example of like drama in real life.
Yeah. So I was at the zoo with my my then girlfriend, now my wife, and we were at the zoo, and there was at the zoo had an eagle exhibit. So the way it works, the way the eagle exhibit is set up there at that zoo is that there's like you walk up, it's kind of a platform. It's ground level, but then they've dug a little pit, and down below there's a little environment, like a little stream and some foliage and stuff. And then there's this big pole, and then at the top of the pole is a place for eagles to sit, and then it's covered by a net so they can't fly away. And there's this little stream that they've built there, and over the stream, like hanging on a piece of bamboo or something, were these fish. So the eagles could fly down and get a fish or whatever when they get hungry. So everybody's looking at the eagles, and then people notice there's a raccoon, a wild raccoon that has snuck in under the fence, and he looks like he wants those fish. So I thought raccoons didn't mind getting wet, but this raccoon was not interested in being wet. So it would sort of pace along the sort of bank there and sort of look at these fish and sort of, and so kind of scope them out. And he stuck his little foot in the water and, oh, no, I don't want that. Yeah. And so right now we have a character with a goal and an obstacle.
Yeah.
Right? And what's interesting is all of a sudden everybody at the zoo is not looking at the eagles anymore. There's a story happening right now.
Yeah.
There's a character with an obstacle and a goal. So the raccoon grabs a fish, and he's pulling on it, and he yanks, but the fish doesn't come loose. And everybody at the zoo is like, oh, right? Because now we're invested, right?
Yeah. Nobody's leaving right now.
No. Where would you go? You got to see how this plays out, right? Yeah. So then he tries it again. Same thing, same result. But then people start realizing, oh, wait, there's eagles up there, right? Are these eagles going to catch on to this?
Yeah.
Now, here's what's interesting about conflict. Stories need conflict. But the threat of conflict is just as strong or as powerful as conflict, sometimes more. So the fact that there are these eagles and that they might attack this raccoon creates tension.
Yeah.
Right?
You didn't even have to see it actually try it and miss.
No.
You just knowing he's there and you keep checking up. Has he spotted the raccoon yet?
Right. This is a potential obstacle.
Yeah.
Right? So, so the raccoon grabs this fish and he pulls it, yanks it clean and puts it in his teeth and scurries out under the fence, and everybody cheers like he blew up the Death Star or something because they were invested in that story.
Yeah.
Right? They were invested in it, and there's even a lesson there about persistence.
Sure. Right. Yeah, exactly.
You could tell that story.
And everybody's felt like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
like, man, if I could just, he missed it the first time. I hope he gets it. You're something to root for.
Yeah.
But what I love about that is, like, you just look at, it was just happening in front of you. Like, the structure was happening in front of you. And I bet you, for anybody even watching this or listening to this, if you keep your eyes peeled, whether you're at the zoo or at the grocery store, you'll start to see this stuff.
Oh, you'll see
the kid
it.
Trying to grab the candy bar and he's not quite tall enough. And you just all of a sudden you're like, why am I fascinated with this?
Right.
It's interesting, right?
It is. Again, it's
character, obstacle, goal.
Right. And again, you can observe this stuff in its natural habitat.
Yeah.
And then that way you don't have an issue with doing it in a story because you know it's real. People tend to think it's fake. Oh, I'm setting up this thing.
Yeah.
Right? No, this is the way life works. Look around.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, trying to figure out how to phrase this. I've worked with clients in the past. Mm-hmm. Of course, none of my clients now.
No.
Where you have to be like, you need conflict. Mm-hmm. Like, why do we need conflict?
Right.
Well, can't it just be about how great fill in the blank is, product, service, whatever?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, because so you're saying you want the raccoon to come under the fence and have a plate of fish, grab the fish and go out?
Right.
Nobody's gonna. There's nothing there to root for, right?
Yeah.
But once you realize that this isn't the conflict thing, isn't just like a filmmaker trying to be a jerk and say not enough conflict in the story. It's like, no, this is baked into reality. This is how we work as people, right? We pay attention as long as there's an eagle there and there's the water there, then we pay attention. If you're asking the consumers or people or whoever to pay attention to your story and you don't have that, it's going to fall flat.
Right.
There's no reason to ever get my attention.
Right.
But going back to clone characters, I just thought that was important to kind of set up the basics with that too. Like, because the Three Little Pigs was a great example of that too.
Right.
Right? It's
Right.
like, okay, well, could that story have worked without the wolf? Well, no, it's three brother pigs that all have nice houses.
Right.
One of them's a tiki hut, and the other one's a brick house. But it's more of about their personal style as pigs, as opposed to actually learning anything.
Yeah.
And so just seeing that the fox, that he wasn't arbitrary. Nobody in that story, there was no fat in that story.
Right.
You needed both the pigs, you needed the wolf structurally for that to make that work.
Right.
Now, if we take that kind of big principle of like, okay, cool, I now see why I needed not only the wolf over here, but really these two other pigs in order to kind of be a mirror back to, a clone back to the third pig who actually puts the time in. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, it's really similar to like those, the classic stories of like, whatever it is, the ant that stores its food. And so in the winter it has food, and then the raven doesn't or whatever.
Right.
The same type of principle.
Yeah, they're clones.
Yeah, clones, exactly. Yeah. Can we talk about like a feature, maybe something people have seen?
Yeah. There's two examples I like a lot.
Okay.
Finding Nemo is full of clones. So in Finding Nemo, actually Pixar's pretty good at utilizing clones. They will exist in a story almost just by accident when you're doing a story. But if you understand that they're there, then you can utilize them fully.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, Nemo's a great example.
Yeah, Nemo's great because in Nemo you have a couple of different kinds of clones. So you have Marlin, who is Nemo's father. And Marlin is overprotective, right? So, and he doesn't think Nemo, his whole family was killed except Nemo, and so he has all this anxiety about whether Nemo's going to be safe and all of that.
Yeah.
Right? Nemo also has an underdeveloped fin, a small fin, right?
He has every reason in the world to be as protective as he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But he's overprotective.
Yeah.
So, later when Nemo's gone and he has to find Nemo, now he's, by the way, Marlin is plagued with anxiety about his past.
Yeah.
Right? He meets Dory, the fish with no memory. Always happy, always.
I know, I love that.
Yeah.
It's so smart.
It's very smart, right? So
the guy who's stuck in the past befriends someone who has no memory.
Right.
It's too great. It's too good.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
So okay, so you have that. But you also have the turtle Crush.
Yeah.
Who is like completely the opposite of Marlin, right? With his son, like Squirt, who gets let him do his thing, right? Where you see that, that's another.
And he's encouraging it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what this guy can do on his own. Otherwise, how will he know, right? So you have that, the clone, saying there's another way to be a dad.
Yeah.
Right? There's another way to parent.
Yeah.
Right? So he's a great clone character, Crush. Now, you go to the tank where Nemo is. And in the tank, you have Gil, the dad of the tank, right?
Yeah.
He's the same way as Crush is. When Nemo, like, they have a little plan to escape and, like, chest it out, see if you can do this thing, and Nemo gets caught.
Yeah.
And all the fish are like, we got to help him. It's like, no, let's see, let's, right? Gil is more like Crush. Gil also has a fin that has been damaged.
Yeah.
So he's a clone for both Marlin and for
Nemo. Yep.
Yeah.
But what's great about that is number one, it's a really well-told story, so not to take anything away, but the nice thing is when you can see these things, for maybe the first time, you can start to go like, oh, this is how you do it.
Right.
Right? Okay,
Right.
What does this character need to learn?
Right.
Right? Who does he have to be surrounded with in order to kind of get him past this obstacle? Even just like for him, like really psychologically.
Yeah.
Right? And like, in essence, I remember you told me one time, you just said, like, figure out the last place your character wants to be, and then you got to put him there.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it's the same thing. It's like, who are these people that have to be around them?
Right.
Right? And then you got to put them there.
Right.
Like, for somebody who's plagued by their past, it would drive you crazy to be stuck with somebody who has, you can't remember their name, or whatever, Yeah. Like, that's a really smart move.
Yeah.
And so, if you were like constructing that, why do you think it was that was the right kind of mix? You know what I'm saying? Like for me, it'd be kind of hard to go like, okay, let's pretend we don't have that story yet, and go like, okay, I have this guy He's overprotective. And didn't Andrew Stanton talk about like he took his kids to the park or something?
Yeah, he took his son to the park or something. He
Yeah.
was spending some time with his kid, I guess, and he hadn't spent that kind of time with his kid, or maybe at that age or something. But I get to hang out with my kid, but he would find himself being overprotective. Don't go over there and don't do that and don't jump on this or whatever it was. Yeah,
And that's where he was like, oh,
hey,
wait, there's something here.
There's a movie in here. Yeah.
What's beautiful about that, even the origin story, is he observed in its natural habitat
Yeah.
and just dramatized it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this thing that just happened in real life, it's true, and I'm going to set it in a cartoon world, and now there's magic there because it's based on something that it's based on real human experience,
Right.
And it becomes a universal story. So I don't even like fish.
Right.
I don't like to eat fish, at least.
Yeah.
I think they look cool. But you can connect with Nemo because there's a universal principle behind it, and there's an armature, right?
Right. Well, there's no story about fish. It's people who look like fish.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no story about fish.
Right.
Even that story about raccoon is not about a raccoon. Right? That's about us.
Yeah.
Right? There's no story about a fish.
That's right.
Yeah. There's no story about pigs. There's no story. It's all about people.
And those clones, if you start looking around your life, you'll see clones.
Yeah, they're clones all over the place.
I see that all the time.
Your
where I'll be
parents
like,
are clones. Right.
and where I think the wisdom is at is when you can see the clone. A friend of mine, really similar to your friend's story, actually, was working at this really incredible ad agency, kind of top 5 best ever. And I was like, boy, that must have been a real blast. I mean, getting to learn from all these people. And he was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, it was cool. But he goes, there was a person there that was really high up. And, I asked him, I go, okay. He was like, yeah, you got to learn a lot of stuff. He's like, but there's also some stuff that made me want to leave. I was like, what was that? And he's like, there was a person there that was very high up, had won every award you can win, did, hot shot. And he was like, in about every 2 months, about every quarter, he would go on a binger. And we'd have to try to drag him out of the taxi, get him sobered up, and take care of this guy. And I was like, now I know this guy from reputation. I've never met him personally. He's a big deal.
Right.
And I was like, really? That's sad. I mean, he's done some of the best work ever.
Sure.
And he was like, well, yeah, because what happens is about every quarter, he tries to reach out to his son.
Oh.
And his son doesn't return phone calls.
Oh.
Because he was never around because he was always working.
Oh.
And so, yeah, he's won every award in the world. Do you think he cares at this point?
Right.
And he goes on these bingers because he can't deal with his kid not
Okay.
give him a phone call back.
Yeah.
And my friend said the same thing. He's like, and I knew I had to get out of there.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I might win the whatever fill in the blank fancy award. But, he was a new dad at the time. He's like, I don't want to do that.
Right.
The cool thing is, when he and I were talking about that, we started talking about clone characters.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think it's so cool that you can identify this person and go, I'm as ambitious as him.
Right.
Which means I'm going to end up where he's at. What do I want more?
Right.
And then you get to make a decision. Right. So that's an example of clone characters in real life, just like your buddy.
Right.
Right? Those are negative. I'm sure we see positive ones too. That's probably why we have certain heroes that we have.
Oh, yeah, they're positive ones. But there's also, I remember, I try to explain to people that stories are about passing on survival information. I think that's why they exist. That's why we do it, so that we can help each other survive. So when, in 2008, when the crash, 2007, 2008, just before the election, the crash, there was, and everybody was worried, are we going to go into a depression? Are we going to, and I remember the headline on the paper, they still had papers back then, newspapers. And I remember it was in the little kiosk thing, and it said, The Great Depression, how did your grandparents survive? Or something like that. And that was the headline of the paper.
Yeah.
Because those people were clones. Hey, this happened before.
And here's how we dealt with it. Yeah.
What did people do?
And I bet you they sold a lot of papers.
I bet you they did.
That's a great headline. It's so much better than there's blood in the streets.
Right, yeah.
It's like, hey, get prepared, get ready.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Storm's coming. There's people that have dealt with the storm before.
Yeah.
Get your shit together.
Yeah. This is how you deal with it. Right?
That's really good copy.
I know, it's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's exactly, it's like, oh, yeah, we need to know.
Not only that, you remember it now.
Yeah.
How many headlines do you remember?
I know.
I'm trying to think, geez, I don't know. 9/11? I remember 9/11 had seen that paper.
Yeah.
But it was such a good headline.
Yeah.
And so on point that you were like, oh,
Yeah.
stuck in your head.
Yeah. Well, it was survival information.
That's right.
Oh, there's survival information here? Yeah. Yeah.
I'd prefer to survive than not.
Right. Right. And somebody has it. Right. Which is why all wisdom is a collection of stories. Right. And so that's why I think stories go often from older to younger.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm older. I have more stories than you. So let me tell you how this goes.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm. And I've had mentors that have said things to me like, oh, you're working with a person that's doing that kind of stuff? That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Here's what's going to happen next. They're going to do something like this.
Yeah.
More than likely, they'll do something like this. And then this will happen. Then they're going to get fired. So what you need to do is do this, this, and this. And then being going like, sure. Guess what happened?
Yeah.
It happened exactly the way my mentor told me it was going to happen. And this person was found out for doing these things and whatever. And it played out. And it's like, yeah, because they'd seen it before.
Right.
And she was trying to pass on survival information to me as my mentor.
Right.
As far as like, don't overreact. You need to go, this is what's going to happen. And boy, it helped me to survive and not freak out in that situation.
The other thing it does, let's say you don't listen. Right? You don't listen to your mentor. Your mentor has a story for you. You go, I don't think they know what they're talking about. Then it unfolds exactly the way that they say it will. Now, you are a much wiser person and you probably tell a story to a younger person going, I didn't listen to the person.
Yeah, I didn't listen to her. And I should have.
Yeah.
And she called it.
Right.
So next time, just take my advice or whatever.
Yeah.
Just listen to when somebody tells you something. Yeah. No. But what's beautiful about this is like one of the most helpful things, even about Invisible Ink, and it's just like starting with this isn't some earth-shattering thing nobody's ever figured out. You're like it starts with everything starts in the real world. Right? Once you understand how the real world works, and like, well, here's how conflict in the real world works. Here's the stories in the real world. Well, you got to have the water. You have to have the eagle. Okay, well, that makes sense.
Right.
Okay, in the real world, you can look around and go like, man, my grandpa worked a lot, and he was never around. For instance, whatever.
Right.
And like, I don't want to end up like that. There's a clone character. Now, if you were writing about a character like that, they probably need that grandpa character so that they can go.
Yeah.
We talked about Schindler's List a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
Right? You need to have. It wasn't Red. It was who's the other guy? Are you talking about? Are you talking about
Schindler's?
Yeah. No. I'm talking about
Not Schindler's. I mean
Shawshank. I'm talking about
that's what I meant. Yeah. You're talking about Shawshank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Did
what's his name?
Did I talk about that?
Yeah, we talked about it a couple episodes.
Yeah,
and I was just doing a callback to what was his name? Not Red. Brooks. You needed Brooks to make Red scene matter. Right? Because Brooks had to be there as a clone character.
Right.
And the funny thing is, if you were to just imagine in your head, if you're visual or like, take that whole thing with Brooks out.
Right.
You would have been like, oh, Red got out of jail, and what's he getting up there to do? You wouldn't even thought about him hanging himself. It wouldn't have worked. Is what I'm saying. Like, there's a reason that guy had to be in there. There's a reason he's older.
Right. Yes.
Right. All these things had to play out the way they did, and that's what builds it. That's the construction, the building blocks that led to the way it crescendoed and the way that it ended up working.
Well, if and this is what we talked about before. Now I remember what we talked about. If your armature is you have to get busy living or get busy dying, then you need an example of both things.
That's right.
Right? Red gets busy living, Brooks gets busy dying.
Yeah.
Right?
That's crazy. That's such a great example because it is actually dying.
Right.
Like it's heavy.
Yeah, and it isn't just dying; he kills himself. So it's even within the context of get busy, like do one of these things.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the same thing if Brooks just dies.
Yeah. Yeah. Old age when you'd be like, oh well, he got out and he died a couple days and died.
Yeah.
No, he took his own life.
Right.
He was in control
of
that decision.
Right.
Just like Red was.
Right.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
It is powerful,
and you can see like how to use it well.
Yeah.
Right. We have so many great examples. You've used the movie Tootsie in the past to talk about how clones can work. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, in Tootsie, so you have the character of Michael Dorsey, who is an out-of-work actor who is a womanizing kind of character. You see that in the first act. You see him at a party, and he's like, he has lines for all the women, like, you look like an actress. And there's even one woman, he's like, you are an actress. He's even surprised it's actually, like, that line is actually true right now, you know?
Yeah.
But, so he lies, gets a job, pretends to be a woman so he can get a job on a soap opera where the part is for a woman. So he's got this job, but everybody who works there thinks he's actually a woman. Now he falls in love with one of his co-stars, and this woman, and she thinks they're buddies, they're friends. They read lines, they work, for the show. They're on this soap opera, and they work together. And she thinks, oh, well, this is my buddy. Meanwhile, he's falling in love with her, and she doesn't know what's going on. The director of the show, this guy Ron, is an over-the-top womanizer, almost
perfect name too. Ron. Of course, it's Ron.
Yeah. Apologize to all the Rons out there, so Ron is exactly who Michael Dorsey is, but just the caricature of him, the bigger version. So what happens is Ron is Julie, the woman Dustin Hoffman's character is in love with, Julie's boyfriend. He's also cheating on her with an actress on the show. Mm-hmm. So this is disgusting to Dustin Hoffman's character.
Yeah.
So at one point, Ron and Tootsie have a discussion about this. And what's great about it is if you watch that scene where he says to Ron at one point, I understand you better than you think I do. It's an opportunity for Dustin Hoffman's character to confront himself, which is a little different use of a clone character. He gets to say to himself, oh, you're not a nice person.
Yeah. And I can start to see it.
Yeah. I can see it in you.
Yeah.
I can
Somebody's
see it
holding up a mirror.
Yeah. You're a mirror.
And go, look at this.
Yeah. Look who you
are.
are.
Are you happy with this?
Yeah.
And you're like, I know what it feels like now.
Yeah.
Like I actually care about this woman.
Yeah.
And I see what it's like when somebody really just takes advantage of somebody.
Yeah.
Whereas before he was the guy doing it.
Right.
It's really smart.
It's very smart.
And he dramatizes it. Mm-hmm. So he knows, well, Ron's got to be a little bit bigger.
Right.
Because if Dustin Hoffman's character was as big as Ron from the beginning, you would have never...
Right.
You would have been like, this guy's a jerk. I'm not going to go along for the ride.
Right.
He's already kind of sleazy.
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
I mean, in the opening scene where they're up in his apartment and you got Bill Murray's like playing the piano and stuff. But like that scene's already kind of like, for me at least, the first time I saw it, kind of going like, I don't know how I feel about this guy yet.
Right, yeah.
If it was Ron, who's 20% bigger, you would have been out. So it's just really smart decision from the writers and obviously the great director. But like where you go like, okay, well, in order for him to see it, I'm probably going to have to boost up the volume a little bit for the character to go, oh, shoot. Do I look like that?
Right.
Yeah, you look like that.
Right. Yeah.
So from a writing perspective, when you're sitting down and writing, how do you think about clones? Like, do you establish... Because even like I was reading, really about that whole new kind of characters in the universe you're building for your new project, and it's really clear that you built the supporting cast as clones around the central character.
Right.
Can you walk me through how you? Well, obviously that project's not out yet, but can you walk me through even your process of going like, okay, if this is my armature, in essence here. If my foundation is, this is what I'm trying to say. This is my armature. Here's my survival information. In order to, pass along the survival information, I need this character to do it.
Right.
And this character then needs these characters. It's almost like a tree.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? I'm trying to visualize it out.
So like, how does that work?
How does that work? Like for you, I'm assuming you started with your armature. Mm-hmm. That led to your main character.
Right.
Where you're like, well, if I'm trying to say this, I need somebody who's dealing with this and who's had these situations.
Right.
And then at least when I was reading your story Bible for your project, it was really clear when I got to your supporting cast. I was like, oh, these are his clones that he has. These are the 10 things he has to learn almost.
Right.
I know you're probably not trying to say that, but it felt like you were like, oh, well, this is the stuff he's got to see.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so can you walk me through kind of that process in general, how you think about building the clones?
It's not that I don't think about clones, but what I do think about is, what do I want to say? So if my armature is, if it was get busy living or get busy dying, I would look for all the ways I could show that. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like, how can I show that? Well, I can have a character who does this. I can have a character who does that. I can, right? I can have a character who chooses this over that. I can,
Yeah.
and you can do that. You know, people are afraid of repetition, but repetition is what sticks,
Yeah.
right? It sticks in music. It sticks. The repetition. I don't know if I finished a thought. We were doing one show, and I was talking about being with these architects. Or was this in real life or was this in a show?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Go ahead.
It was either in real life or it was in a show. But either way. So I was with these architects at this famous church. I was speaking to them like I was giving a lecture, and they were like, we're all going and packing into this van, and we're going to this very famous church. We were in, where was I? Wherever I was in the South. So I forget where it was.
I didn't know if you were in Rome when you were doing that.
No. This was not in Rome. This is, for some reason, I can't remember where. I was in, wherever I was. Anyway, so I can't think of it. But anyway, so we go to this church, and a very famous church, I guess, very famous architect. And I had just lectured on story structure, but I had the benefit of being around all these architects and industrial engineers, and we went to a Frank Lloyd Wright house, and we went to this other place, and I said, so what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Right? Because I just showed them what I saw that they didn't see.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, here I am.
Sure.
You know, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And what they started showing me was, in this church, they started showing me, so you see the shape of this door? You see how that's repeated here and here and here and here and here and here, and this is the sort of theme of this place?
Crazy.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's the same thing.
So, but once you saw that, were you like, how did I miss that?
In a way, yeah. But I wasn't looking for that. So,
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
You were probably like, oh yeah, it's a beautiful building.
Yeah. Yeah, it had
But
a nice feel.
but because they were architects, they're like, oh, you know what we saw?
Right.
We saw this.
Yeah.
So for you, you're doing that something similar, almost as the architect of the story.
Right. So as architect of the story, you go, well, I've got to repeat this over and over again.
Until when? Until you've proven your point?
Well, there's a point at which you can't sustain it, right?
Yeah.
Right. You know, but I mean,
Past two reels. Laurel,
yeah.
Laurel
But
Hardy.
you go, you state the theme, and then it's a variation on the theme, right? Mm-hmm. That's the same thing in music, same thing in storytelling, apparently the same thing in architecture, right? Right.
Yeah.
So you do that as long as you can sustain it.
Yeah.
But making sure that you've explored all the avenues that are worth exploring, right? So there are other things that say get busy living or get busy dying in the Shawshank Redemption, but you would not have, unless you'd gone that far with Brooks and Red,
Yeah.
then you would not have explored every avenue,
That's right.
right?
Here's another example.
Okay.
We were talking about Ace in the Hole the other day. Billy Wilder's film, and some really great clones in that movie.
Great clones.
Right? I mean, I'm wondering if this is too niche. How many people? Let's just pretend. Hopefully
Pretend
people have
everybody's
seen it.
Ace
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
Hole.
okay.
Yeah.
But when you first follow this reporter into the office, the first thing you see in the reporter's office in New Mexico is a stitched sign. Was that crochet or whatever? It says "Tell the truth."
Yeah.
Well, Billy's telling us right out of the gate, like, it's not a mistake that it says "Tell the truth."
Right.
And then there's a beautiful scene where he's talking to. Do you remember the guy's name that ran the paper?
Oh, Mr. Boot.
Wow, good job.
Yeah, thanks.
So he's in his office, and his whole thing is the truth, and you can tell that.
Right.
And then you got this new reporter who's really fancy, and he's talking about how great he was, and he's trying to negotiate a salary, and he's
Right.
like, and you can get me for only $50 a week or a month, and then he goes for only $45 a month, for only
he keeps
$40 a
talking it
month.
down,
He keeps
yeah.
talking it down, and then at the end of that conversation, the scene flips, and the guy who runs the paper goes, and we pay people $60 a month here,
Right.
and you go, oh, that guy really is about telling the truth.
He's an honest guy.
He's an honest guy, and he establishes it like that. And who's the perfect person to have against this main character?
Right, because this character is not a person who tells the
He's
truth.
not a person that tells the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what he's willing to do, whatever it takes to get the story.
Right.
And you go like, well, we need to have, from a contrast perspective,
Yeah.
we need to have Mr. Booth to play off of our central character.
Yeah.
Right? And there's all these great opportunities for this guy to show up at the right time and to be like, pretty much you sold your soul.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, that I just thought that was a good example of like a clone that had to be there for the sake of contrast, because contrast is really important in stories in general, right? In film, I mean, especially when you're doing anything visually, like contrast is a big deal. And in, like, again, something only looks big next to something small, right? Like a dollar looks small, but if you put it next to a penny, you go, oh, a dollar looks pretty big.
Right.
So from a contrast perspective, like if there was another pig that was trying to kill this pig, and it was just a little bit bigger, not good enough.
Right, no.
It's got to be a wolf.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Contrast as much as possible, because that helps people see the difference.
Right.
Right? So if you have a crooked kind of reporter, you've got to have as straight arrow as possible boss.
Right.
So there's something to play off of. I mean, comic books work this way too. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. They work so well when you're telling a story, a binary. That's why there's an idea in a story of good and evil, which we're sort of getting away from because we think it's more sophisticated. So everybody's gray, and then you don't know who to root for, and then you know what I mean. And I'm not saying that your hero can't be a little bit gray, and that your villain can't be a little bit gray. But if you blur those lines too much, then you're not even telling a story.
What are you even talking about?
Yeah. Right? Then, unless for whatever reason that's your actual point. But usually it's not. Yeah. It's just a kind of a...
Usually you just don't want to be the one that says, oh, it was a little too simple, and you're scared to...
You're scared to be
in essence,
clear.
in essence, you're going, well... I mean, a lot of times, think about it. How often do you find yourself rooting for somebody on TV or whatever? You're like, yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for this guy, but at the same time, they're an awful person. And I don't even know who the good guy is. I don't know who the bad guy is. I'm not really sure what we're doing here other than almost like a social experiment.
Well, and that's that thing that happens now where we take it out of the emotional place and put it in the headspace.
Yeah.
Right.
And then if you ask the writer, they'd be like, well, you have to understand life's this way.
Right.
And you're like, well, sure, but that's the theme beats logic stuff you talk about.
Yeah.
But going back to the clone stuff, it just seems like once people get this as writers or even just as viewers of stories, once you can start to see clones and you start to go like, okay, what's a great way to look at clones? If you're developing clone characters for the first time, start with something like contrast. Here's a really simple one. Great. What's the main thing that's kind of driving your character? What is the thing you're trying to prove with them, right? It's like, well, hey, if you go through your whole life lying, right, it's going to come back to bite you.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. Great. So we probably need a character that's a liar.
Right.
What does it also tell us?
You need the
character. We need right.
Yeah.
And then this guy needs to be, if he's like slimy, but kind of in the middle slimy, doesn't seem like a horrible person.
Yeah.
But he just kind of bends things a little bit. He needs some people that show that have no problem breaking.
Right.
Like, so you got to push in both directions of contrast.
Right.
Super slimy, the church going guy with the don't tell the truth thing or whatever.
Right.
Like you kind of need to, and all of a sudden you start to go, well, shoot, I've already got, well, 1, 2, 3, I already got 4 characters now.
Right.
That I have to have. I mean, even if you said just a Nemo, you're like, well, we got Dory and we got Crush and we got, it's just a nice little exercise of going, I need clones. They need to be contrast this character in order for him to be able to see.
Right.
Right. It's just a good starting point.
Yeah.
Because even if you could go do this exercise, figure out what you're trying to say, figure out your armature, who's the character you need to embody this around.
Right.
Right. Now, from a contrast perspective, who are the clones? Right. And all of a sudden you start to go like, shoot, I know what I'm saying. I have my character and I have the 4 characters that are around them.
Yeah.
At least that's a place to start.
Right. Well, look at Jessie in Toy Story 2. That's just Woody.
Yeah.
All she is a clone for Woody.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what happens when your boy grows up and you're abandoned, and what are you going to do then?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, right. That's right. What do I do then?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm better off here than there.
Right.
Eventually, he's going to grow
Leave
up.
anyways.
Yeah. Right?
Do you risk it? Do you risk the relationship? Or
right.
whatever?
And the prospector, I forget his name. Prospector.
Stinky Pete.
Stinky Pete.
You really are a Stinky Pete.
Right. So Stinky Pete is the toy who's not played with.
Yeah.
Right? Which is no existence at all.
Yeah.
Right? But that's a clone too. Do you want to be the toy who's never been loved?
And he goes bitter.
Right.
She's abandoned, and she's kind of figuring that out. He goes bitter.
Right.
which is a choice you're going to have to make.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is they are sort of in some ways, Woody's in the middle of this. He could be her.
Yeah.
He could be him. Like which.
Yeah,
right.
They're right in front of you.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to figure out who do you want to be, Woody?
Right, or maybe neither one. Maybe you've got the answer, right? But you still have to. You have these two examples.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a really well constructed piece.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they did a great job with setting those stakes, and also the prospector is very different than Jesse. Mm-hmm. There's choices that had to be made there. Like you said, if you saw it from a bird's eye view, you got, okay, well, if you got Woody here, you need Jesse over here, you need the prospector over here. That's going to create tension.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And now we got a story if we've got the character, the obstacle, the goal.
Right.
Right? And these are the clones that I'm going to need to help get us through this journey of how we're going to overcome this obstacle and get us there.
Right.
Make sense? Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Clone
It's just
character.
so simple. Yeah. But they're powerful characters when you use them well.
They're everywhere.
They are everywhere. They're everywhere in your life. They're everywhere in stories. And if you know that they're everywhere in life, you'll learn how to utilize them in stories. It just makes sense to you. The problem is that people often, they're always afraid to be clear. The hardest thing to teach people about doing this stuff is being clear.
Why do you think the clear thing is such a big deal?
Because it seems like cheating, or it seems too pedestrian. Anybody could do this. Anybody could get this. It's too accessible, and we have this thing in our culture about, when it comes to art, about it being too accessible, because it's not brainy enough. Then
You don't think that's the Enlightenment? That's like, I think therefore I am type of stuff, where it's like it became all about the brain. The only thing that mattered was the brain. It became about thinking, and we lost heart, we lost spirit, it just became about the brain.
Right.
And I told you I was hanging out in New Mexico with my buddy, and we were talking about, he grew up on one of the pueblos out there, and we were talking about, how we're so obsessed with the mind, right? That we're missing everything else.
Right.
We're missing, what about love? What about the spirit? Like, and he's talking about where he came from and the different ceremonies and things, and I'm like, yeah, when did we buy into this whole thing? All that matters is thinking.
I know.
When did we buy into the thing where it's like, so you're saying you want to do a thinking piece, you want to make a movie that helps people think, but you really don't care if it moves them emotionally?
Yeah.
The point is to move people emotionally.
Right.
I don't know why you would make a movie if you weren't trying to move someone emotionally. What would the point be?
The point would be to show them that you were smart. Look how smart I am.
Look how smart I am. Because you walked out confused.
Yeah.
So if I walk out confused, that means they were smart.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I don't know.
I don't know either. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't get it.
So, because if you look at Ace in the Hole, again, I bet nobody's watched Ace in the Hole.
Well, they're going to have to watch Ace in the Hole.
Or whatever. Or Some Like It Hot.
Oh, yeah, same. It's the same.
Like,
they just have to watch these
or
movies.
E.T.
Okay.
Okay, E.T.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't get choked up at E.T., I don't know, something happened.
Right.
But like, everybody loves E.T. How can you not love E.T.? And if somebody's like, I don't love E.T., and they're like, why? And you're like, I didn't think enough. I'd be like, okay.
Right.
Like, even, we were talking about it on another episode. You were talking about, the wonderful thing about kids' movies is a lot of people love kids' movies.
Right, yeah.
Because they're like, oh my God, I understood what it was about.
Right.
Because it was okay to be clear in a kids' movie because it's a kids' movie.
Right.
But if you look at, even if all you care about is money, let's just say you just care about money.
Yeah.
Want to make money? Be clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, be clear. Like, all the Pixar movies that do really well, like, they're clear. People can go and get something out of Nemo, and somebody in their 90s or at 9,
Right.
they can all enjoy Nemo, and that's a bigger audience, and they're not worried about trying to, in fact, like, I'm assuming Andrew's not going, I hope they leave having no idea what happened in the theater today.
Yeah, I don't
right?
think so, yeah.
Probably not.
No.
So I don't know how that happened, but it seems like when you watch Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin or any of those guys, they were after emotion.
Right.
And their stuff still stands.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, they wanted to.
Hitchcock was about moving people.
Yeah.
That was the point.
Yeah, he wanted you to feel things.
He wanted you to feel something.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to take you on a ride. I want you to feel something.
Yeah.
This is beyond entertainment. And we were looking at the definition of entertainment the other day, and it just said to divert.
Yeah, it's a diversion. Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's really easy to think that entertainment is stories.
Right.
And they couldn't be further from, they're not the same thing.
They're not. Stories can be entertaining, they aren't always entertaining, even if they're engaging.
Yeah.
Right? They're not always entertaining.
Yeah.
A story about how somebody survived the Depression might not be entertaining.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or
Right.
the Holocaust.
Right.
Push it as far as you can.
Right. It may not be entertaining.
Yeah.
But that's not the sole purpose of stories.
That's right.
Right? And we don't just seek them out for entertainment. And if all you want to do with a story is entertain people without giving them anything other than that, and a little bit of sugar is okay, right? You know what I mean? But after a while it'll rot your teeth, right?
Exactly. It's just, even when we call it the entertainment business, I wonder if it would change things. Definitions matter, like words matter.
Yeah,
I think sometimes we forget that.
I think so too.
And you go like, well, if we call it's the entertainment business. I wonder if it would change things if it was the story business. Because the difference is like the stories have to have substance. Well, stories should have substance, right? If you want to make something that really stands and is helpful, which I hope you want to do. Like if you were a chef, if you wanted to make food that actually nourished somebody,
Right.
as opposed to just like, I don't know, 6 pounds of cotton candy. It feels good for a minute, but all you're going to think later on is like, I wish I wouldn't ate all that cotton candy.
I know, right? Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and I think that nourishing thing is a big deal because it also tells you have a responsibility to your audience. Like think about the fact that Brooks hung himself.
right.
That's heavy stuff. It was redeemed later on when we realized that Red didn't have to. So what I love about that is they needed that to happen for the story, but it wasn't exploitive.
Right.
The writer, the director, I mean, I talk about a great director, right, wasn't just messing with the audience to entertain them.
Right.
So many of these movies you see where you're like, what was that? Why did you need to blow that dude's head apart?
Right.
How does that help the story? It's
Right.
like you're just trying to mess with the audience. And the problem with that, because we know how the brain works with mirror neurons and everything else, is when you're doing those things, you're jacking with someone's head.
Right. You are.
And if it's part of helping them understand how to survive the next depression or get through this heartbreak they're in or whatever, it's like, okay, well, it's part of the story. It's like, Brooks died.
Right.
It's heavy. Or there was that war scene, and you needed to understand that war scene because the whole point of this is that war is hell.
Right.
And so you got to see how bad war is. But man, sometimes I feel like I'll be watching a movie or TV show, and it's just like bonkers, crazy stuff. Like a pregnant woman getting stabbed to death or something.
Yeah, right.
And you're going, how does that has nothing to do with this story. You're
Right.
just an asshole.
Yeah.
And I can't, and you go like, oh my God, I couldn't go with the most incredible twist. You know that woman who's 9 months pregnant, I'm going to stab her to death. And you go like, the audience won't see that coming. Yeah, maybe they won't. Maybe they won't see it coming. Maybe because it shouldn't be coming. Maybe because it shouldn't happen.
Right.
Why does that particular thing, is that motivated? Other than shock jock bullshit?
Well, here's the thing. I think that when you don't have the skill set to actually move people, it becomes sort of an escalation of cheap tricks to move people, right? So if you stab a pregnant woman, you will get a response.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with craft or anything to do, it's not hard to get a response, right? But that's not the same thing as moving people,
Yeah.
right? You can get a response.
Right.
You know what I mean? Without any craftsmanship,
Yeah.
you can get a response.
Right. It's a trick.
It's a trick.
It's sleight of hand. Or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah.
It's a trick when you don't know how to do it another way.
You know what it's like? It's like having a little kid, right? And going, you could go in there and just scream at them. Oh, they spilled their milk? You could go and scream at them.
Right.
Get an inch away from their face and just scream at them. And you'd be like, yeah, but he didn't spill his milk again.
Right.
And you're like, sure, you're a monster.
Right.
Or you can go, well, here, let me talk to him.
Right.
It's like, hey, it's just his hands were too small. He kind of too heavy.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, it's just as much my fault to try to make you pour that yourself. Or,
Yeah.
Or go, if you would have been paying attention, but it's not a big deal. I'm just saying, if you took some of these things out of a movie or a story and put them in real life, where you're like, the stabbing the woman is the same as like yelling at someone in their face to try to get a response and go, yeah, but and then you go back to your son 10 minutes later and you go like, bet you didn't see that coming.
Right.
I bet you didn't see, I bet you didn't think I was going to get on my knees and an inch away from her face and scream at you till you started crying. You didn't see that coming, did you? And you'd be like, Yeah, you got a response, but then what?
Right.
But then what?
Yeah.
You're going to be paying for that.
Right.
Because now the audience, just like that kid will never forget, that audience is never going to forget the time that I was watching your show and you stabbed this woman to death for no fucking reason.
Yeah.
And now I can't trust you anymore.
Right.
So what's the next thing? Are you going to burn somebody alive?
Yeah.
Right? Like you're going to keep escalating this
That's
stuff.
what has to happen. Right.
And then you get Caligula or something.
Right.
And you're like, Buster Keaton, Buster Keaton's a bad example because people don't. The really good craftspeople don't have to do this crazy stuff.
No.
They're good enough to go like, I don't. I can make you scared. Like Hitchcock can make you scared without showing you anything. Like
there's a murder.
Think of a Rear Window.
I know. You don't see, but there's a murder in Frenzy. That's a pretty brutal murder in the beginning of Frenzy, and you see it. It's pretty brutal. But the second murder you see, you don't see. Because you know how it goes down. Mm-hmm. You know it's happening. It happens behind a closed door.
Yeah.
And you just hang outside the door.
Yeah.
The audience hangs outside the door. So he let you know because he had to let you know how it goes down.
Yeah. This is the world we're in.
Right. But then he never...
But he's not exploiting. Right. Also, it's worse when the door is shut.
Oh, yeah.
But whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
Like...
It's really tense to watch.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's awful.
Yeah.
Because you know what's happening.
Yeah.
But he didn't have to show you.
Don't they cut outside, too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, then they go out to the establishment
It's just a one long shot.
Yeah, that's right. And you're like, that's great, though.
Yeah.
Because that's not exploitive.
Right.
Sorry, I don't even know why I started talking about that instead of clone characters. But I'm just saying, like, that it's... The beautiful thing about whether it's clone characters or armature, any of the stuff we're talking about is, like, if you start to realize this is what those people that hopefully you really look up to, like truly great storytellers, understood this stuff. And boy, once you realize that you can see it, the beautiful thing about once you can see something is you can start to try it, and then you start realizing, I could do that.
Right.
I can tell a story without having to resort to this jock bullshit.
Right.
I can tell a story that's about something, and I can move an audience and truly give something to the audience that by the time they walk out, and by give something, I don't mean like it has to be happy. I'm not saying that.
I know what you mean.
I'm just saying Ace in the Hole's in a happy movie.
Right. No.
You know, like I'm not saying that it has to be super, cheesy or anything. I'm just saying, would it be great if it was almost like a service to the audience of like, hey, this is going to be brutal. Just like if you were talking to a grandparent that was in the Holocaust, I'm going to tell you a brutal story, but I'm telling you this because I want you to know what people are capable of, but also like that you can make it through something like this. It's like, well, I'm glad they told that story. Right. Like Schindler's List is as brutal as it gets. Yeah. But there's a point to it.
Right.
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 And that's why it's going to last. And that's why I think people will still be talking about it in 100 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're still talking about Buster Keaton or whoever.
Right.
Because there was something there.
Right.
But this is what they knew how to do. They understood why those characters. Even the clones, like you would talk about the clones in Schindler's List.
Oh, well, yeah, because you have the really horrible, I don't know, I say horrible Nazi as if you can have another kind of Nazi, but you have the horrible example of a Nazi, and then you have Schindler. They're both exploiting this situation.
Yeah.
But one guy really takes it to the extreme and has an opportunity to change and doesn't take it.
Yeah.
Right. So, Schindler is trying to save somebody's life and talks this guy into not killing somebody. He's like, you have all the power. You could absolve this person. You have that kind of power. You don't have to kill. And the guy starts thinking about it, then realizes, no, I'd rather kill people, and continues to kill people. Schindler, on the other hand, says, I don't have to be this guy. I can be another guy.
Yeah.
I don't have to be who I've been. I can be another person. Mm-hmm. And so they are clones.
Yeah.
Schindler looks better next to this guy. This guy looks worse next to Schindler.
That's right. And you truly do need the other guy for contrast.
Yeah.
Because Schindler's not the best dude ever.
No.
But boy, in that guy's shadow,
yeah.
who was a monster.
Right.
And we just talked about the craft side of that movie, and you were talking about how some people hate on Spielberg, and it's
people
just
like to hate Spielberg.
Bonkers, because that movie it's so dialed. There's stuff. that's just, it's so over the top good. Like,
Yeah, people. What happens is, I was just talking to a friend about this because there are lesser filmmakers, and when you're talking to people about those filmmakers, and you go, none of their movie that doesn't make sense, and why did this happen, and this is random, and blah blah blah, they will say, but what about that scene where X happened, or that this shot here, or something like that, right? So the one thing that saves the whole movie for them.
yeah.
With Spielberg, it's exactly the opposite. With Spielberg, it's, yeah, but I didn't, that thing with the red dress, that, right? Or the beginning and the end of Ryan. Like, look, I don't like the beginning and end. I don't like those bookends in Ryan. But there's a whole movie in between there,
Yeah.
right? There's a whole movie in between there. So it's a weird thing. It's like, for other people, one thing saves the movie. For other, but for Spielberg, one thing ruins the thing. So it's
And those things are like, okay.
yeah, they're usually minor.
The red dressing is like, you didn't, okay.
Right. Yeah.
So you're going to throw the whole thing. Did you catch anything else?
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
But structurally, talk about a sound movie. Well, funny thing is, if we're talking about Schindler's List, we're talking about Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Yeah.
And clones in Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Yeah.
Right? There's some incredible clones in there.
Right, yeah. We have his mentors, right? The mentors are clones for him.
Yep.
You have the other little boy chess genius who's a clone.
Yeah.
Right? Because Bobby Fischer's character is all about having a good heart.
Yeah.
Right? He's all about having a good heart, and the other kid is all about winning and losing,
Yeah.
which is the thing that Josh Whiteskin is supposed to learn, that, it's not about winning and losing.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Remember that guy who's playing chess? And he's just like talking to himself?
yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, is my kid going to end up like that? Or
Right,
like,
yeah.
or like, there's really great decisions. I mean, well, yeah.
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 It's Steve's alien.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
these are all great examples. If you're trying to understand clone characters, boy, there's some really good stuff out there to watch. But it's nice to know. And in fact, here's a great way to look at clone characters, I think. Take one of them away.
Right. Right.
Who are you going to take away in Searching for Bobby Fischer?
Right.
You're going to lose one of the mentors? How?
Right. Right.
Even the weird kind of chess guys that are hanging out in the club. Which one are you going to
Yeah.
take out that scene?
Yeah.
You going to take the dad out?
Right. Right.
Take out mom?
Yeah.
Who do you take out?
Right. Right.
And the beautiful thing about that is it's almost like it's like if you took a Jenga stack and stacked them all one on top of the other,
Yeah.
and you go like, you can't pull one.
No.
We were talking about Some Like It Hot
Yeah.
and how it's just stupid. It's so good.
yeah.
And you go like, what? Pull a character out.
Right. Right.
Try to pull out one Jenga piece.
Yeah.
Fix it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're going to pull out spats?
Right.
How?
Yeah. Right.
You're going to pull out... I mean, there's no one to pull out.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's constructed well.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Well, it's Billy Wilder.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
out of here.
But it's the same thing with Ace in the Hole.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
You going to pull the wife out of there?
You can't pull
out
anybody
the
out.
bot? You can't.
Yeah.
There's no fat.
Yeah.
And so, because the problem, I guess, with clone characters is you can make too many clones where it's all these really nuanced, like, well, technically
Right,
you might want a guy that also sells donuts,
Right. Yeah.
and you're like, yeah. But I mean, who are those critical roles that have to be there in order for it to fly, in order for the plane to take off?
Right. But you can also have small clones, an interaction with somebody who's inconsequential, it seems like.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I always say that you could have for instance, let's say you have a character who is always a pessimistic character.
Yeah.
And you have some utilitarian scene you've got to have where you've got to see somebody buy something at the store. Like, it's important, an important plot piece. Like, we got to see them buy bottled water at the store. So,
Right.
so let's say you have the checker at that store. You go, well, this is an opportunity for a clone character.
Yeah.
Right? That checker...
It doesn't have to be a throwaway person. Yeah.
Right. That checker could have everything go wrong and be completely optimistic.
Yep.
Oh, this thing, it's not reading. The reader's not working. And, isn't that just the way? And let me just, it's not, right? That's a clone.
Yeah.
Every character that interacts with your protagonist is an opportunity for you to illuminate something about your clone, or your protagonist.
Your character.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Get to know your clones.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thanks.
Next time on You Are a Storyteller.
People always want to know how to do. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I write a first act? How do I write subtext? It's always, how do I do it? without having learned how to see it. And that's the first step, right? If you don't recognize it when you see it, how are you going to do it?
Thanks for watching You Are a Storyteller. If you have any questions or there's a storytelling topic you want us to cover, leave a comment below or email us at hello@believeagency.com.